On today's episode, we have an amazing conversation with Jim Kwik, brain coach to people like Will Smith, Richard Branson, and more. And we talk about the superhero that is yourself when you're writing a book. We talk about a couple big things, and the highlights from the conversation is number one, remember when you're writing a book that you're the hero and you're going to need to use your skills and superpowers to overcome this book. Number two, remember that the big villain is distraction and you need to sort of train yourself and use resources and tools to help you. And number three, remember, you don't sort of be creative, you do creativity. And so use those ways to sort of harness those practice and skills behind it. It's an amazing conversation for any author to help you need that spark to be the superhero, overcome those villains, and ultimately be creative.
Growing up with these learning challenges, I'd want to be invisible because I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be heard. I mean, deep down, I want to be seen. Deep down, I want to be heard. But I would always sit behind the big kid in class because I didn't have the answers. And I started teaching this when I was 18 years old. So this is going on 30 years, 3 decades. And so when I started teaching this, I would be teaching, people twice my age, 3 times my age. And who's going to take advice from this kid, right out of school? Who's in a, what do you know kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it took me some time. I realized what I would say to everyone who's kind of facing this and struggling, that maybe there's not an easy answer, but I could tell you that through struggles comes strength. That I think part of our journey here is to have the curiosity to know ourselves. Mm-hmm. Really the curiosity. That's why self-awareness is a superpower. Talk about superpowers, you can journal, talk therapy, meditation, but also once you have the curiosity to know yourself, have the courage to be yourself.
Yeah.
When people see me live on stages, I do these demos where I'll have maybe 50 people introduce themselves, 100 people introduce themselves in an audience, and I'll memorize all their names or 100 words or 100 numbers. And I always tell people I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's really possible, because the truth is all of you can do that and a lot more. Imagine how what you could do in terms of writing your art, your work, your passions. And the reason I know it is I grew up with learning difficulties. I had a traumatic brain injury at the age of 5. Actually, I had 3 traumatic brain injuries before the age of 12. And because of it, I had these processing issues. I had poor focus, a poor memory. It took me 3 years longer to learn how to read.
Really?
My teachers would have been surprised if I read a book, much less wrote a book.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta send them copies of it, right?
Exactly. Cases of them. So when I was 9 years old, I remember I was slowing down my entire class and I was being teased for it because the teacher would have to slow down, repeat lessons and such. And she, I remember in front of the whole class, she pointed to me and said, "That's the boy with the broken brain." And that is unfortunate because that label became my limit, put me in that kind of box. And I believe labels are learned. And the reason I'm so excited about superheroes is I learned how to read by reading comic books.
Yeah.
That's my uncle. They gave me these comic books and I would pour myself into them because it was a way for me to escape how uncomfortable life was. I was being bullied. I didn't understand. I didn't fit in. And something about the hero's journey, it just brought it to life. That the idea that, you could discover and develop your superpowers, that there could be adversity. A lot of superheroes' journey is filled with, challenges, meaning that even a lot of my favorite superheroes growing up, they were orphaned. I mean, think about
right.
When Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Iron Man, they had these challenges. And so I wanted to find my superheroes. And, they also said that one person can make a difference, that there's hope and they have real help. So I love that. I love Joseph Campbell's work.
I want to talk about another villain that I find to be an interesting one that especially in writing books, is this idea of distraction, right? Today, as much as we're sort of less distracted a little bit, maybe when in this sort of non-pandemic world, there's a lot of I'll admit, Netflix is a real problem for me. Just one more episode. How do you sort of find that the world's best people, how do you coach people who are amazing to sort of harness that anti-distraction array that they may have inside them?
Yeah, in the book, I talk about 4 specific supervillains that are driven by technology. Just the generations before didn't really have to deal with that as intensely. It's really amplifying the challenge. All day, rings, pings, dings, app notifications, social media alerts. How do you maintain your concentration in a world full of distraction? I feel like they're multitasking. They're doing multiple things at once. Just keep up with your juggling different things. And now in actuality, the research I talk about in the book is multitasking is a myth. We're not actually multitasking. The brain is not it's not possible for it to do multiple parallel processes, cognitive activities at once. What you're really doing is task switching.
Yeah,
you're going from task another. So my suggestion for everyone who needs to focus is to do one thing until completion. And here's the thing, here's 3 reasons why not to multitask. Number 1, it costs you time. You think you're gaining time, but you're actually losing time because it takes anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes to regain your focus into that new activity. The second thing is you make more errors. And I get to train a lot of world leaders, writers, notable writers, actors, athletes, doctors. And a lot of the doctors, they're making, these studies show that they'll actually make more mistakes if they're trying to do multiple things at once. So not only does it cost you time and errors, but it's also costing you energy, meaning that you're actually burning more brain glucose. And so if you feel mentally fatigued, your brain is sapped of energy. Part of it could be trying to multitask. You're rewiring your brain for 2 things. Number 1, distraction. Every like, share, comment, cat video, it's a dopamine flood, right? And it's building your distraction muscles. But the second thing it's doing, it's rewiring your brain, not only for distraction, but also reaction.
Yep.
One message, voicemail, social media message, text message, whatever, email can hijack your whole mood for your whole day. And people, like as you're writing, you want to get in that creative state, that kind of theta state. I believe you don't have creativity, you do creativity. There's a process talk about. And do not be reactive, because the future belongs to creators. And the chapter specifically we talked about on chronotypes, where there are different time types based on your hormonal profile. And so when you understand your chronotype, you know when's the best time to eat, when's the best time to go to sleep, when's the best time to exercise, when's the best time to check your email, and also when's the best time to write, because you want to when you're most vibrant, when you're most alert and such. And so you can look into that. So the other thing I did was I would write in about 25-minute increments and then take a 5-minute break. And it's not a 30-minute break, a 5-minute break. And I'll be refreshed. And remember, only writing during the time I'm optimized, when I feel like I'm most energy. Just like working out, if you're lethargic, you're probably not going to get the best workout, of your thing. I also find that we train people to go into a theta state, and there's different brainwave states. Like beta, you're most awake, like everybody is, hopefully is here right now. And that one's delta, sleep. Alpha and theta are interesting states for learning. Alpha state is a relaxed state of awareness. It's how we train people to learn languages, facts, and figures very rapidly. I train a lot of actors. I had a notable Hollywood actor give the cover testimonial for the book. But I also trained TED speakers how to memorize their talks, getting into an alpha state of awareness using music, for instance, like Baroque classical music will put you into a relaxed state of awareness, 60 beats per minute. Theta state is a state you go into when maybe you're very creative. It's like in and out of sleep. Einstein actually would do his thought experiments. He would sit outside of Princeton in his rocking chair and hold a rock because he didn't want to fall asleep, but he wanted to stay in that state. Because if he fell asleep, he would drop the rock and he would go back and, that awake state, which is, where we want to be. But also showers put you in a theta state. How many of you shower and you come up with ideas? How many of you
classic thing, right? Like
when you can't write things down.
Light bulb in the shower, right?
This morning, Eric, just to prepare.
Exactly.
But there's certain things you can do to change your state that makes you more creative. And remember this, you do not have creativity, you do creativity.
Yeah.
That's the thing. This conversation is about transcending. It's about ending the trance, ending the mass hypnosis that we're not good enough, not smart enough. We change the languaging. Some people say, they wake up and they say, I hope I have focus today. I hope I have concentration. I hope I have energy. I hope I have good memory. These are not things you have. Right. Those are things you do. And the goal here is to realize that you have taken noun and turned into a verb. You take a noun and turn it into a verb, and that gives you autonomy, it gives you agency. Like just a quick story, just to really sink in, is I remember I got to introduce 2 of my creative superheroes together. They're very 2 different thinkers, but they wanted to meet each other over dinner. It was Richard Branson and Stan Lee. And Richard is a very dynamic thinker. He's written a number of books. He's dyslexic, but he started 400 companies.
I want to ask about like kind of living a life well learned, and you're kind of the guru of learning here. What do you find that these people, and you've coached and worked with some amazing people, what do they do differently that you think the rest of us can learn from to live this life well learned?
I run and I read every single day. I have to do something physical and I have to do something mental. Now, this is an example right now, just a reminder to everyone to move. As your body moves, your brain grooves. You create brain-derived neurotropic factors. When you're on an elliptical or you go for a walk, you're more likely to retain that audiobook or that podcast. Also, people like Steve Jobs and all these creatives, they would do walking meetings, not sit down board meetings. And that act of walking, actually made them more creative and come up with solutions and to these problems or these dilemmas and innovate and everything. So I would say a commonality is not only are they lifelong learners, right? Because if you want your business to grow, your book to grow, your brand to grow, you need to grow. right? But then also they direct their focus with the power of their questions, and they're very cognizant of that self-talk. I believe your brain is like a supercomputer. Self-talk is the program it will run. And my last suggestion would be really hone in on your routines. I believe the treasure you seek is hidden in your daily routines.
Yes.
At first you create your habits, then your habits create you. You create your habits of exercise or reading each day or writing for an hour a day or whatever it is, meditating, eating good, whatever. And then those habits create you back. I would say lifelong learning, control your self-talk, and then finally reevaluate your habits and see which ones serve you and which one pull you further away from what you want.
You've set us up here. This is like perfect here to go forth and write books here. I'm like fired up now, Jim. I have to tell you, you've done some amazing things. Again, so much big appreciate it.
Everyone's time. I just want to remind you that you are the greatest project you will ever get to work on. And just I'm really honored to be on this path because books changed my life. You want to upgrade your discipline, your faith, your work ethic, your confidence, your perseverance, your consistency to be able to meet your dreams, your destiny.